and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I'm the devil.
And I'm Matt Freeman, and I'm God.
Well, this is awkward.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
This week on the show, it is time for another one of our Council of Doof episodes. Matt, what is this type of show about?
Well, once a month, those individuals who donate to us on Patreon at the Doof at the Council of Doof level, will get to collectively decide on a movie for the community to consider for entrance into the Doof canon. Scott and I and maybe some guests will then meet to talk about the movie and then present our case for why it should or should not be admitted.
But as always, we leave that final decision up to you guys, our listeners. So stick around, listen to our arguments, and then find a link in the show notes for where you can go vote on whether this movie will be entered into the canon. Matt, what is that movie that was nominated this month?
This week, the council has put forth the 2000 film Bedazzled.
Oh my gosh. Was a little bit surprised to see this one not only get nominated, but then handedly win the vote and be brought before us today. So it was a surprise for sure, but a welcome one.
That's right. A delightful opportunity to talk about this movie. You know, we don't get to talk about a lot of movies with Brendan Fraser.
That is true.
And I don't know if we get to talk about a lot of movies directed by Harold Ramis either. I don't
think we ever have. No. So it's kind of wild. We've never done a Ghostbusters episode, considering we're two men born in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
It feels like we should have done a Ghostbusters episode, but that's besides the point. So yeah, we're going to be talking all about Bedazzled. We're going to do a deep dive review of this movie, and then we are going to vote on whether we think it is worthy of entrance into our list of our canon of the greatest films of all time. And then I think, Matt, I wanted to kind of wrap up the show to talk to you about something I watched this week. Marvel has a new television series on Disney Plus. It's called Marvel's What If, and I've seen the first episode, and I have some thoughts for you. I know you haven't seen it yet, but I do have some thoughts for you.
Okay, that sounds fun.
So that's our episode. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about Bedazzled.
Elliot has never had any of his dreams come true.
I would give anything to have that girl in my life.
Until now.
Hello. You're very glib. I bet you're a whiz with the ladies.
Well,
Let's go someplace quiet so we can talk.
okay.
What if I told you that I have the power to give you anything and everything you've always dreamed of?
Who are you?
Promise not to tell anyone? I'm the devil.
Yeah, right.
Matt, what is this movie all about?
A hopeless dweeb, Elliot Richards, is granted 7 wishes by the devil to snare Allison, the girl of his dreams, in exchange for his soul.
Yes, this movie was written by Larry Gelbart, based off of a 1967 film of the same name, written by Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. As you mentioned at the top of the show, this was directed by Harold Ramis, and it stars Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley, two actors that kind of disappeared, but now one of them is back.
Yeah, that's true. I was definitely noticing that while watching it. I was like, wait a second. The only other actor I recognize from this movie is the guy from the Office Space.
Mm-hmm.
And this, it's so weird. It's so weird because, like, I don't know. This is one of those movies where I never know, like if I'm at a party or whatever, and if I were to bring it up, would people just be like, "Oh yeah, Bedazzled, love that movie," or would they be like, "What? Never heard of it?" Like it's one of those movies where I remember really enjoying it. Like there are certain bits that have stuck in my head.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that I feel like was on the cable movie channel rotation for a very long time after it came out. And so it happens to be one of those movies where I think I've probably seen it like a dozen times or more. I've seen this movie so many times, and I had this whole movie memorized, and I watched it with my wife who had not seen it before, and I was just like, I was laughing before the scene started because I knew what was about to happen.
Uh-huh.
and like, I don't know, like we're gonna spend some time talking about this. I don't think this is a particularly good movie, but I really, really like it.
I think what I would say is like many classic comedies, it barely functions as a story. but that's fine. Like think about like all of the best comedies in the world are sort of ridiculous. Like
Sure.
and that's not that's not the point. The point is just like, look, the point is we have these series of scenes where they're basically just like, here's the one where he's overly sensitive and they're on the beach and it's like a skit and everything about it is perfect. Like some of the individual, I think that's one thing that you could say about it is like some of the individual, 6 parts, basically like the 6 distinct scenes where he does things. Some of them are much funnier than others, is what I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I what I'll say is I think the biggest problem this movie has is I think it uses its best material at the beginning. Like the first 3 of his wishes are like the best ones. Like the Colombian drug lord, the extremely sensitive guy, and then the basketball player are like the most hilarious parts of the movie to me. And then everything after that is just like, And then I think yeah, the biggest problem, like, it's just this whole movie, like the momentum of this whole movie kind of dies about halfway through. And then we just kind of limp across the finish line. And I mean, there's some good moments in there, but we mostly just kind of limp across the finish line from that point on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, and I think the way it ends is that sort of just like perfunctory moralistic ending where you're like, okay, yeah, he learns his lesson. Of course, he has learned his lesson. It's that kind of movie.
He's the only one in 6,000 years to have wished for something for somebody else and not for himself. I mean, here's the thing I'll say, and I want to really dive into this. There are a lot of very interesting, subtle, I don't know if that's the right word, things that this movie's doing that I found really interesting on this rewatch. I really want to talk about the first 15 minutes of the movie, which I think are some of the weakest parts of the movie, but it's really fascinating because I think every other version of this movie has, like, you immediately feel sorry for Elliot for like him being the guy like that just has no friends and nobody likes him, and like he's so like just people just don't see his quality, right? Not this movie. No. This movie starts his character being the most obnoxious, annoying, like you completely understand why everyone in his office cannot stand him. Yeah. You completely understand it, and it's like it doesn't hold back. Like, we don't start with this character as a sensitive, understanding, selfless person. He's dweeb is the right word, but he's also like he's a bit racist to the black guy, like, and he like switches to be like coded talking black to him. It's just like everyone he talks to, he's kind of being annoying and stupid and insensitive. Yeah. And I think the reason is he's trying so hard, right? I think that's like the underlining thing of his character is he's just trying so hard to get these people to like him, and he doesn't know how to do it. But it's such an interesting choice to start the movie off where you're like, God, this guy sucks. He really sucks.
Yeah, he sucks. I mean, his obsession with the woman that he's in love with is portrayed as being creepy and
it is
weird.
Incredibly creepy. Yeah. Because he actually, I mean, one thing the movie concludes on is that he actually knows nothing about this woman at all. He just is like kind of creepily stalking her from afar.
Yeah. There's one line thrown in there somewhere where he's like, I know she's not like that. Like, I don't remember what it is exactly, but basically the implication is like nothing that we've seen in this movie is actually the way this woman actually is. Yeah. And it just kind of ties into this idea that he's just, he thinks she's pretty and he's been basically staring at her from across the room for like 3 years.
Yeah. Early on in the movie, like they're talking about how she's dating someone and he goes like, no, that's been over for months. And then when he asks her out at the end, she's like, no, I'm seeing someone. Right. And it's like, so were you wrong, or was she just lying because she's not into you? I mean, either way, it doesn't matter. He's not like, he's not, I mean, nothing we see of this woman makes you see why he would be into her at all other than her looks, right? Like, just there's nothing there. And that's really interesting. I also really like I always noticed it, but I never really paid attention to it. The recurring beat of all the people in his office being characters in each one of his wishes, and they're almost universally shitty to him and terrible. None of them are like ever actually his friend. Like I think the one exception to this is one of them is his lover in the one wish where he ends up being gay. But even that, like in the context of the film, was played as like a non-desirable thing, which I don't want to get into that. This is the year 2000.
That's the year. That's surprise. I was gonna say that's the 90s, and it's like, well, that's the year 2000. I guess that's the literal end cap of the 90s. Where maybe the last movie where that was even marginally acceptable as a way of spinning that joke. I mean, the basic outline of it isn't offensive, but the way they did it was offensive is what I'll say.
I mean, I think like you can give the movie credit that like he's not disgusted by his discovery that in this reality he's gay, but like just the way we're playing stereotypes with with his boyfriend and it's just not it's in no way a good look at all. I mean, I found it really interesting that these these quote unquote friends, like they all serve roles in this, but it's almost universally to fuck him over, as if like the point of this whole thing is for Elliot to realize that he shouldn't want to be friends with any of these people. Like they're not. Yes, he's not a great person at the beginning of the movie. He's an annoying person. He's a tryhard, but like none of these people are like good friends for him either. Yeah.
It seems like, I mean, I think that it actually works. It all does hang together thematically, because the basic theme, which is revealed at the, sort of on the nose climax, is, you shouldn't just like wish for things to be better. That's no way to live your life. And like the way he's been living his life is like wishing that these people would be nice to him because dang it, he wants them to be his friends. Yeah. And wishing that he could be with this woman who he's never talked to. And it's almost it's the situation where it's like, well, as long as I never talk to her, she can never reject me. And thus I can just keep wishing. I can just keep imagining. Yeah. And remain in stasis and be miserable, but at least it's a known quantity of misery instead of the misery being rejected. Sure. And so that all, I think that all comes together, and I like that, right? I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I do find it a little disturbing that the universe grants him a woman at the end that looks exactly like Allison, but actually has a personality that Elliot would be interested in. I don't know. There was something like a little skeezy about that. It's like, okay, good. You learned your lesson. Well, here's the physical characteristics that you liked in this person, but we've now combined it with a personality that might actually be interested in you, and vice versa. I don't know. That's just a little weird to me. Like, why not just make her a different person?
Yeah, just have some other, standard, gorgeous Hollywood actress, not the same actress, and just have it be like, yeah, like there's other fish in the sea is the right. So like that's the thing. I feel like the proper conclusion should have been there's other fish in the sea, and what the movie did was there's other fish in the sea that are identical to the fish that you wanted in the first place.
Continue to only desire a person's physical characteristics because you will find those physical characteristics in another person. Yeah, a little weird, but I mean, it does fit like kind of the absurd humor of this movie, which is playing off of like absurdity throughout the whole thing. I just like I love each and every one of the dreams. Like the Colombian drug lord one is so funny to me, and I promise that this whole show is not just going to be me talking about the funny parts of this movie, but like him speaking Spanish. There's a thing that's happening here that obviously Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley, well, not Elizabeth Hurley, it's the Frances O'Connor. Neither of these two actors are native Spanish speakers, right? They've obviously learned the words and they're just reciting the words. And because of that, they're saying them clearer and slower than a native Spanish speaker would speak them. And I've taken just enough Spanish to where even if there weren't subtitles, I can actually understand the words that they're saying. And it makes the scene even more hilarious to me, especially when he's like talking about how much his Spanish teacher wouldn't believe this, and then starts going through the whole thing. Like, no, thank you. I'm allergic to shellfish is like the most like Brendan Fraser, we're going to spend like 15 minutes of this podcast talking about Brendan Fraser, but
Yes.
his delivery of these Spanish lines, hola Juan, hola Esteban, donde está la biblioteca? It's just so fucking funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And he's got the mustache on that he rips a piece off of in his ankle. Like, it just, like, the physical comedy of this thing works so well.
Yeah. I mean, yes, let's just have Brendan Fraser corner here.
Yeah.
And maybe even just make this be a general Brendan Fraser discussion, because
I think this is a great movie to do it on, for
yeah,
sure.
because like I've showed my kids The Mummy and George of the Jungle, which are the other great Brendan Fraser movies where he gets to showcase general comedy in terms of like timing and just all the basics, and also physical comedy in both of those movies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good. Like, there's so many classic moments that have even become like reaction gifs for both of those movies, and this one actually, like the him looking at the sun and weeping.
Oh my god! Oh my! The way they made the overly sensitive character look is hysterical to me. Like,
Yeah.
I laughed my ass off the second he's on screen.
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser. He's perfect. He's absolutely perfect, and he's getting to do everything that he can do in this movie.
Yeah.
I continue to be delighted by the fact that we've kind of we appear to be in the middle of a Brendan Fraser renaissance. I'm so happy for him that he's kind of gotten to a place where he's getting roles again and has kind of figured stuff out again. I mean, if you look into what happened to what Hollywood did to him, it's horribly disturbing. Like, not only did the Mummy movies like physically destroy him, but he was sexually assaulted by producer. Like, this guy went through some shit in the 2000s, and it's terrible and awful. And I'm so glad he's like gotten out the other side of it, and the internet is in love with this guy. I mean, I think honestly the reason this movie won this vote is because the internet's in love with Brendan Fraser right now, and
Yeah.
that makes me so happy, because I've loved him since Encino Man, which probably most of the people listening to this might be too young to actually remember, when he was like just in a bunch of Pauly Shore movies.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely loved him, since I was a kid, and then he just sort of mysteriously disappeared, and I didn't, as the world is big and complicated, and I was just kind of like, oh, I guess he's not getting any roles, and didn't really. It was only much later that we kind of all realized that it was for all these terribly sad reasons. But it's great because you can just go back and watch these great comedies. And
I mean, Blast from the Past, where he's like, he has, the thing about him that's so interesting is he has this zone that he's very good in, which is like the G golly sweetheart character, right? That's what he plays in Blast from the Past with what is the actress? Alicia Silverstone. Have you seen that one? It's so good.
No,
so good.
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Blast from the Past is the one where he gets locked in a bomb shelter with his parents, his father played by Christopher Walken, which is amazing, and comes out in the 90s. And so he's like a guy from with the G golly, Leave It to Beaver, morals of the 50s, in the 90s, and it's adorable, and Brendan Fraser's doing great. So he has that kind of good boy, like Boy Scout type of thing, but he also has this very suave mummy type character, where he can actually be the action hero and be the cool guy, and in this movie he gets to play both of those things, and he also gets to play a giant basketball player. He also gets to play a Colombian drug lord. I mean, he gets to do his full range. I mean, you can just kind of sense how much fun he had on the set of this movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Just there is a specific. I don't know what the phrase is. I'm groping here. Like just the deep sarcasm that he has in a lot of his comedic. Just like the way he spins certain comedic moments strikes me as just like very unique and very like. Only he would specifically do it that way. And, every comic actor I think probably has their own little like specific flourishes, and I think his is just like there's this like cynicism that he can tune into when he needs to. That just like makes the moment really land. I also really loved how like he is simultaneously this hunky guy, and also he can like act dweeby so thoroughly that like you stop seeing him as hunky.
Yeah,
Which I think is really a powerful move.
I think props to the wardrobe department for really just laying it on thick with the clothing he's wearing in the non-Wish scenes. But I think you're right. The way he holds himself changes, like the way he walks and talks, and like he completely changes his character, like based on each one of these wishes, and also the main Elliot version of himself, to the point where, yeah, like the Rick O'Connell from The Mummy is like, there's no even piece of that you can see in this guy.
Yeah.
He's so thoroughly different. He's, especially when he's so fucking like, our introduction to this character is a woman walks into the workplace and he gets up and goes, "Huh, Carol, I thought the day started at 9, not 9:05." And you're just like, if someone did that to me Monday morning at work, I would just flick them off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what she does, I think.
Yeah.
But like, it's so, I mean, again, I can't get over the fact that like any other movie makes him sympathetic and like kind from the drop, and then like it's like the world is fucking him over, and therefore that's why he's wishing for all these things. But no, it's like he's the problem. Actually, he's the problem, and he needs to figure out how to solve himself, not solve the people around him.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's funny because I'm not even sure at what point the movie makes you start actually feeling for him. I can't really remember, but it does at some point. Like you start to like, I think what happens is you see him in sort of the interstitial moments between the comedy set pieces. You see him like reacting and demonstrating like that he's gradually learning things, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of see a shift in the way he talks and the way he's interacting with Elizabeth Hurley in those moments. I think the craziest thing to me is like so much of the way he talks with Elizabeth Hurley versus the way he talks with all his coworkers is so completely different, and it's because he's putting on airs for them. And so like I think once he's alone and getting to be vulnerable and not trying to put on this I'm the cool friendly guy just like mask, you start to kind of feel for him. And I think one of the smart things they do is in every single one of these interstitial things, Elizabeth Hurley is like doing some minor mischief because she's literally the devil, and he is always like disturbed and made uncomfortable and trying to fix the thing that she's doing. And I think that kind of also helps endear you to him, because he's not actually a bad person. He's just he needs to work on himself.
Yeah, that's a good point. When he drops the overly try-hard persona, you actually realize like, oh, he's just not comfortable in his own skin. Like he can act like a normal person. He just doesn't have any self-confidence, and yeah. And I mean, it's actually relatable too, because not that I've ever been as bad as him specifically as the fictional character in the movie, but like definitely had moments where I was more try hard when I was.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely had moments where I really wanted to be welcomed into a group. Like that was really important to me. And so I was really, really trying to ingratiate myself into that to a point where I'm sure it was probably a little annoying. Definitely not that, like anything else in this movie, Elliot is an over exaggeration of that idea, but I think it is on some level pretty relatable. He doesn't have any friends. He's been working at this place for a long time. He's in customer service, which is really interesting. I think one of the funniest parts of the movie is he's in, it's either tech support or customer service. I can't remember which, but he's on the phone with someone and he puts them on hold to go small talk with all of his coworkers. Yeah. And we never actually see him complete that call. It's just like, oh God, you're not actually that good at your job either.
Yeah. I like to imagine that person just eventually gave up and hang up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting because that's a scene where he actually seemed to be interested in helping, but then he did indeed put them on hold and never came back.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's selfish, right? I mean, that's kind of like, I don't know if the movie ever comes out and says the word selfish, but that's the way he is. He's very, very concerned about what he wants and what he needs, and he doesn't seem like he cares about
Yeah.
anyone else. Like, it is interesting that we never actually get to know anything about these other characters in his office. Like, I think the guy that Orlando Jones plays is my favorite because I love Orlando Jones, and just when he gets really big eyes when he's uncomfortable, um, it always makes me laugh. But I don't know. I guess we could talk about Elizabeth Hurley a little bit here as well.
Yeah, sure. I think at first I just wanted to to say, like, I think it was actually important that he start out the movie being dislikable, because you actually had to believe that, like, Satan thought that she could get her hooks into this guy.
Sure.
Like he had to be bad enough that you had some sense that, like, yeah, like, I can see why Satan wants to damn this guy. Whereas if he had just been, like, basically a good guy who nobody liked for no reason, then you would just not get that. Like, that wouldn't connect. So yeah, anyway, we can talk about it.
Sure. No, and I think it's also, I mean, he's literally selling his soul for wishes, and the part where the thing that actually convinces him to do this, right, is Allison. And there's something, like, again, there's something really disturbing in that, is like he knows the score, he knows what this is, he knows about selling his soul, and he's doing what any rational person would do when they're actually just given the idea, like, point blank, because it shows that he's clever, right? Like, she's all like, what is your soul worth? That's nothing. It's like, and he recognizes very, very astutely, well, then why do you want it, right? But then that all goes out the window the second she shows him a picture of Allison, and shows the picture of them making out on the beach, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like this there is a really weird kind of ownership of her, where he's like, I want to make her mine. Like, and it's the level of possession increases as we go through the wishes, right? It starts with, I want her to be married to me. It's like, no, I want her to love me. And I get, like, the scene when they're in her room when she can't see them, it's a funny scene, and I appreciate it. But there is something, like, just under the surface really disturbing about, like, let's break into someone's place and figure out what they want, and then make myself into the person that this person says that they want. Like, it's just, it's all uncomfortable, and I think it's supposed to be.
I don't have the movie quite as in my head as I should. Does he ever actually wish specifically for her to love him?
Yes. In basically every wish after the first one includes some kind of stipulation that she loves him, because, like, that's kind of the joke in the overly sensitive one, is she says, I love, God knows I love you, Elliot, but I just want someone to treat me like shit.
Yeah.
Which was very funny.
It is.
And then I love, like, I just want someone to treat me like shit, and take me out and grab my ass and just buy me dinner just to get in my pants. And then the one guy on the beach is like, yep, that'd be me.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, I think that's the back to the idea of what you said earlier about the core is that he's selfish, is like a person being in love with you because you used magic to interfere with their mind should be so disturbing that it, like, devalues and invalidates the idea that they love you at all.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the point of having a person who loves you if it's not, like, for who you are? It's just because you messed with their brain.
Yeah, totally. Or created an entirely alternate existence in which you are a Colombian drug lord. And
yeah. Right.
I'm sorry. I promised I wouldn't do this, but when he asks her how the English, like, lessons are going, and she speaks, like, terrible broken English, and he's like, wow, that's really good for 6 months.
Yeah.
Con Raul. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's all so good. Anyway, so yeah, let's talk about Elizabeth Hurley for a bit, because she's like Brendan Fraser. Elizabeth Hurley is an actor who just kind of disappeared. She was a model, and then she was married to Hugh Grant until this year, 2000, and her biggest role that everyone probably knows her in is Austin Powers. She was Vanessa in the Austin Powers series. But then she just kind of disappeared. And one of the reasons I think I actually looked into this, Matt, because I was curious, there was a Screen Actors Guild strike going on in the year 2000, and Elizabeth Hurley crossed the picket line to do a commercial, and the Screen Actors Guild like fined her, and she made a lot of enemies when she did that, and that's probably part of the reason why she just hasn't been around as much. It's interesting because if you look at her filmography, she's worked like on and off in both TV and movies since 2000, but obviously like the double whammy of Austin Powers in this movie, like and try to think, there's another movie I knew her in that there's a movie called Double Whammy, but that's not the one I was thinking of. I think Serving Sarah was the one where she was with Matthew Perry. Yes. Like she really seemed like she was a star on the rise, and then she just kind of disappeared as well. What do you think, Elizabeth Hurley? Do you like her?
Yeah, sure. I share your feeling that it seemed at the time like both Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley were going to be these two actors we were just going to see just on and on through the 2000s, and that was like the last time we saw either of them. It's actually kind of sad and strange, and it's a shame. You know, it actually kind of weirdly seems like Hollywood specifically fucked both of them over, in very different ways, obviously. But it seems like it was a very toxic place to work for a long period of time. And
yes, it was.
Yeah,
the past tense. It's definitely all changed, and it's all good now.
It's all good now because Disney owns it. And Disney needs to put a good face forward, so you're not allowed to abuse the actors anymore. Anyway,
they're probably going to make Disney's probably going to make a new version of this movie, and then all the horniness is going to be gone. This is like, speaking of horniness, this is a very horny movie. This is like extremely horny.
Yes, it's definitely having fun with it. It's sort of that's one place where I think the Harold Ramis influence comes through. Is
extremely
the appreciation for kind of lewdness and a sort of pervy, sexually frustrated character.
Yeah, this is very much, I think, the year 2000 version of a 80s perv comedy, right?
Yeah.
Like it's still got some of the like there's a lot of double entendre going on here, and obviously Elizabeth Hurley, like in every scene, is just like dressed in the most like the most appropriate / inappropriate thing possible for the scene at hand. But like it's obviously cleaned itself up post 90s a little bit, right? There's not like the 80s version of this movie, there are naked characters everywhere. Like there's naked women in it in every other scene.
Yeah.
That's not how they make movies in the year 2000, so that's not here. But you see the Harold Ramis like horniness, for lack of a better word, kind of peeking through in different moments of this movie.
Yeah, I think raunchiness is the
raunchiness is the right word.
Is the word that is the word. Yeah, no, I think there was even a deleted scene that I happened to read while reading about the movie. There was like a more overtly sexual scene that had been in the movie that they deleted because it was not like, I don't know why. Frankly, it was probably just like too over the line for the times because the Puritans have apparently taken over.
I mean, let's just like when he's the basketball player with the tiny penis is just so fun. Like again, this is Brendan Fraser like killing it, where he's just like sitting there. He's like they've forced perspectived him to look way taller than Francis O'Connor, which is already kind of funny looking.
Yeah.
And he's just got his towel open and he's like, what? Damn.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's fun about so many of those skits is like he created a whole new character just for that. Like he's not just being Brendan Fraser being a basketball player. He's like he's this, much dumber guy who now has a Southern accent and he has like bleached blonde hair and like
he's so dumb.
Yeah.
So dumb.
His face just kind of looks different. Like that's what's weird.
Yeah,
is like what
they've put prosthetics on him in just about every single one of the scenes. Like in the Colombian drug lord one, he's got a different nose.
Yeah.
In the sensitive guy one, I don't know what they did to his teeth, but his teeth just look a little different.
No, they're like the gum line is much closer to the teeth, which maybe is supposed to be a riff on like the idea that he's sensitive.
It's really interesting because like none of this is particularly necessary. Like you
Right.
could argue the only one that is specifically necessary is the basketball one because it wanted him to be like a super tall basketball player, but not even to the extent they do it. But it's just like, I think that's the Ramis commitment to the hilarity is that like, we're going to make him look different in every single one of these.
Yeah.
And then of course him playing Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But yeah, no, I the basketball stuff, like for whatever reason, the you know, you want to play good, you try to play good. Yeah, I think we played pretty good tonight. Like that has been in my head since I saw this movie. Like it's just, and the fact that he's continuing to sweat and it's just the sweat is getting absurd. And the weird, like, not only is he kind of dumb, but the reporter that's interviewing him is using like some of the most verbose vocabulary ever, like for no reason. Like, and so you can clearly tell that he doesn't understand a word that this guy is saying.
Right.
And it's just like no reporter actually talks like that, but it's just, it works for the scene.
Well, for some reason, something that killed me on this viewing, which I didn't remember at all, and it wasn't even a Brendan Fraser thing. It was, you know, the two guys who were being the announcers, who were I guess two of his friends.
Yeah.
And they're, you know, they're going like he's 7'8", but he plays like he was 13 or 15 feet tall. And the other guy goes, "Oh no, I don't think he's nearly that tall, Frank." and he's like, "No, I just mean that he plays with, you know, the ability." it's just this, it's like the dumb humor of it just killed me.
It's so good. Like that's the thing. Like the random cuts like that where they're just, it's telling jokes that are different from just the joke, the standard joke of like, isn't it weird how Elliot looks right now? I think that's part of what elevates the movie as well, because it's just doing more than just look at weird Elliot Richards. Now he's a big tall guy. It's saying there's other jokes. There's clever. That's I know he didn't write the movie, but that's total Harold Ramis. Like that whole exchange between those two announcers.
Right.
Is perfect.
I think one characteristic of Harold Ramis, in my opinion, is finding humor from a bunch of different vectors. Like there are a lot of comedies where all of the comedy is just like, there's rapid fire quippy dialogue, and like that's all there is, which can be a funny, you can have a funny movie that way. But with Harold Ramis, it feels like he's using visual gags, he's using just all sorts of different kinds of, you know, jokes. He's letting the actors ad lib sometimes and keeping things that are funny. You can't really tell because it all works. He had that, you know, he made some of the best movies of all time.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, he did. He is very missed. I was very sad the day he passed away. I think if you notice this conversation so far, the one thing we haven't done is really focused on the end of the movie very much. And it's because I think on a certain point, this movie had to get into the serious type stuff. Like I actually did enjoy the conversation Elliot has with God, who is the man in his jail cell and near the end of the movie. But it's just like, I don't know. I feel like there was a way you could do the climax of this movie where it is as zany and ridiculous as the earlier parts of the movie without taking away the seriousness of the culmination of Elliot's arc, you know? And I don't think they pulled that off. I just like the climax is the weakest part. Like I've honestly, when this movie was on movie channel rotations, basically post basketball player sketch, like you can almost call them independent sketches, is usually when I kind of just would change the channel of the movie.
Yeah.
Because the funniest parts of the movie are over. I know where this is going. It's just not as interesting to me as we get to the finish line.
This has actually been a pet peeve of mine with romantic comedies for forever, basically, where romantic comedies will be like funny. Oh no, this is now the part of the movie, and it's in like every fucking romantic comedy where the relationship looks like it's on the rocks. You know, the man has to go through the dark night of the soul, and now there's suddenly no jokes, and it's very serious and boring, and you're just like, this sucks. Like I'm not like, you could also make this funny. Like,
yeah,
you could,
why can't we just make that part of the movie funny?
you could make the fact that he's miserable funny. Like, that can be funny. And and I don't think that would necessarily rob the scene of pathos. I've seen movies that do continue to make it funny. Like, I mean, it's a very non-central example, but I'm thinking about They Came Together, where like just
my God, that movie.
That movie just never takes itself seriously, like for an instant.
It's so fucking good.
Maybe also Meet the Parents would qualify, because I don't think that movie ever lets up. But I would say the vast majority of romantic comedies, they have this all the wind comes out of the sails, and you're just like, okay, I guess I'll just leave because the movie stopped being funny. And I think that's what happened. Like some screenwriter in Hollywood was like, you have to follow this formula.
Yeah, like why can't the climax of a drama movie is the most dramatic part of the movie, right? So by that same turn, the climax of a comedy should be the most comedic part of the movie, and yet that is not the way we do it. We tell jokes. Oh, but we need to have a dramatic climax because we don't know how to do it any other way. That's a little frustrating. And I mean, if it was a better done dramatic climax, I think I might be able to look past it, like I do with so many of the other comedies that exist out there. But no, this is just like, I don't know. Like we already talked about like kind of the cringeness of the gay character. I think the Lincoln one is like a good one-off joke, but it's short enough to where it's like, oh yeah, that was pretty funny. And then from there, it just kind of, there's just nothing left until we get to the end. I guess I kind of enjoyed him yelling at his computer screen when everyone else is standing around him awkwardly. But like, I think this is a movie in which the most insane, ridiculous things happen. And yet I found myself going, I don't believe that he went to a church and told a priest that he made a deal with the devil and then was arrested for it. Like, right. I just like that's beyond absurdity. Like, I think one thing that the movie does pretty well is that it keeps the most absurd moments of the movie to the dream sequences, to the wish sequences, where it's like all bets are off anyway. And that's just like the movie just needed to put him in that position, because like in a jail cell, contemplating what you're going to do with your life is like just thematically and visually captivating and functional. And so it just needed to get him in that jail cell. And it's just like, so how do we do? I don't know. He freaks out a priest. And so the priest has it like, right. No.
There's a lot of treading water in that part where it's like, he does that. And then like, he like goes to the club and like, he's in like, she teleports him to hell maybe, but maybe it's just an illusion. And you're like, okay, what are we just, a lot of just like, I get that you're trying to make me worried about him, but I actually am just bored now. Which, it's kind of, it's I don't know. I see it as typical actually for this kind of movie to sort of run out of steam and not quite know how to finish. Because I mean, I think frankly the problem is like the sensibility behind the movie is this like raunchy, cynical, like sort of skeptical of the higher motives of humanity movie. And then it's like, well, we have to end with an uplifting affirmation of the goodness of humanity. And it's like, it just doesn't really work with the movie that you just made, like the whole movie that came before this, right?
Sure, yeah.
Which I think that's, again, it's a sort of problem with raunchy comedies that are about bad people. It's like it always feels dishonest. Like I mean, it's actually a weird beat toward the end where when he grabs his coworker by the collar and like bullies him basically, and you're like,
is that
wait a
supposed
second.
to be him like finally learning to stand up for himself? And I'm like, that's a scene that takes place in a movie that doesn't have him being the asshole in the beginning.
Right. He was never really bullied. They just didn't like him.
Yeah,
and
they
just
lied to him. Yeah, they just lied to him about where they were hanging out. They weren't bullying him. Like they wanted to be left alone by him. Like if he didn't talk to them, they would not talk to him.
Yeah. Right.
And so that it's like they forgot, the movie forgot
yeah.
that.
I mean, even when they're being hard on him, it actually comes across as like, well, I mean, if he knew how to take a joke, then this would actually just be friendly ribbing. But because he takes everything super seriously, it's not. And then it's like, and then he like roughs the guy up, and you're like, oh shit, he's kind of still seems like an asshole.
Yeah, I don't. That you're right. I totally forgot about that scene, and that there was something on this rewatch that bothered me about it, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And that is exactly it. It's a scene that takes place in the other version of the movie, the lesser version of the movie, and yet it's still here.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, overall, very funny movie.
Mm-hmm. I love this movie to death.
Some storytelling mistakes in the end, a lot of classic comedy moments, a classic Brendan Fraser performance. I don't think I want to say my favorite because I love The Mummy like an unreasonable amount. But I think what's fun about the movie is you get to see him play basically like a handful of characters.
Yeah.
And
can you remember all the 90s Brendan Fraser movies?
No. I don't think I even saw that many of them. I just really loved The Mummy, and and I really loved.
I do not have IMDb open right now, so let's see
George
how
of
good
the
I can
Jungle
do. So there was Encino Man. I don't know if you remember that one. That's when he's a caveman in Encino.
Oh, I do know. Yes, I forgot that was him. Yes, I've seen that one. Yes.
George of the Jungle. There was a movie called Airheads where he plays a rock star that takes over a radio, like, and holds the people inside the radio station hostage to try to win back his girlfriend, I think.
Yes, I've seen that one too, and that's also really good.
And then, of course, there was The Mummy. There was this. What? Isn't there one where he plays a Canadian Mountie?
That sounds familiar. I mean, he was in a bunch of movies. I just didn't see most of these.
Okay, Dudley Do Right. I looked it up. Dudley Do Right. Then there was Blast from the Past. He did a bunch of like the Who Framed Roger Rabbit type movies. He did like Looney Tunes Back in Action, I think, was where he was with Looney Tunes. He was also in a movie called Monkey Bone, where I think he plays a cartoonist.
Okay.
He made, like, as much as Hollywood fucked him over, he made some really interesting choices.
Yeah. Right. That's the like, I don't know, everything about it is sad, but yet another sad thing is like he seemed to have a unique sort of artistic sensibility, and he made interesting movie choices, and just it's a shame. It sucks.
Yeah. But he's back, man. He's back and he's killing it. I don't know if you have watched any of the show Doom Patrol.
No, I've just seen clips of like him in the show because I knew that was a thing. And you know, he's great. So
yeah, I mean, he's good in that. He was in a Soderbergh movie this year called No Sudden Move. He's apparently been cast in a Martin Scorsese movie that's filming right now called Killers of the Flower Moon. That's really fucking cool. I think he's one of the stars of that movie. And so, like, Brendan Fraser getting to star in a Scorsese film. Holy shit. Good for you, Brendan. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's interesting because it's not like he didn't make anything for, you know, the entirety of the 2000s and 2010s. He just made movies
really small stuff
that never, you know, they never made it to the theater basically. So he was working. Maybe we should watch some of these, you know, secret Brendan Fraser movies.
We really need to do a Doofcast review on The Nut Job.
I want to see G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra because he was apparently in G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra.
He was in that?
He was Sergeant Stone.
Uncredited role.
Uncredited cameo in G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra.
Journey to the Center of the Earth is the other big one I was thinking of. I really think that's like Journey to the Center of the Earth and The Mummy 3 both came out in 2008. And I think that was like really the end of his ride. I mean, I think he was already his star was already kind of fading by that point, but neither of those movies were very well received. The third Mummy, I don't know if you've seen it, man. It's the worst. It's real bad.
I actually don't know if I have. Oh, that's one with Jet Li. No, I don't think I've seen that. I don't think I have.
Don't bother. Don't bother.
I won't. I didn't really like the second one either.
They made the incredibly poor choice of they couldn't get Rachel Weisz back as Evie, and so they just recast her. And it's just like it just breaks your heart.
Yeah.
And they even like make a joke about it. It was like, wow, you look different.
That's stupid. She's like the protagonist of the first movie.
She is.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Apparently he was in 2 episodes of King of the Hill, which is it's pretty great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Of course, he was in Crash. I remember the role he was in Crash. The one of the most hated Oscar-winning movies of all time, Crash.
Yeah.
But that's Brendan Fraser, and I'm really happy for him. Man, good for you, Brendan.
Yeah.
It was really great to revisit this movie and see exactly what I loved so much about 90s Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, me too.
So being more official now, we have to give our vote on this movie. And so, Matt, do you think Bedazzled is good enough to be in the Doof canon of greatest films of all time?
Well, look, honestly, it's not my favorite Brendan Fraser movie. And it's a funny movie, but it's far from my favorite like comedy. So I'm just not sure what justification I would have for putting it in the canon. I do like the idea of there being a Brendan Fraser movie in the canon because he deserves it. But
yes,
I don't know if I don't think this is the movie. Like I'm glad we watched it. I'm glad we talked about it. I just don't think this is the movie. What do you think?
I agree with you. This is not peak Brendan Fraser. This is not peak Harold Ramis. This isn't even peak Elizabeth Hurley. I feel like if we're gonna put an Elizabeth Hurley movie in the canon, it has to be Austin Powers. But so like what is it? Like, is this peak Faust? I don't think so. I don't think this is peak Faust either.
Close, but no.
So yeah, I think just it's a movie I really love for sentimental reasons. It's a movie I enjoy watching. I think the only reason I would say yes is just taking the insane pleasure of seeing someone pull up the Doof list of greatest films of all time and seeing Bedazzled on there and going, what?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no, I'm so glad we got to talk about this, but I think my vote on this one is just no. It's just not quite there for a lot of the reasons we just talked about. But
yeah, I do.
Still a really good movie.
I do want to see, what the voters say, because I think it could go either way, actually.
They do love Brendan Fraser. And I think if we were talking about The Mummy right now, I think we'd have our first 100% vote, because who's going to vote no for Brendan Fraser's The Mummy?
Exactly.
Nobody would do that. But yeah, this is not quite as beloved as that, but he certainly is. I wonder, we haven't talked much about the 1967 version of this movie, and that's because I don't think either of us have seen it. So there's not a lot to talk about there. But I did read a little bit about it, and I think there's some fun little changes they did there. Like, I think the first wish that he makes in that version is for an ice cream, and they change it to a Big Mac and a Coke in this, in which he has to pay for it, which was a wonderful touch. I actually really liked having to take a bus to go get the thing he just wished for. But in the original version, the 7 wishes were meant to represent the 7 deadly sins.
Okay.
And they just kind of carved that right out of this movie. In fact, they kind of lampshade it where he asks her, why 7? And she goes, I don't know. Why not 6? Why not 8? I just like the number 7. It's like, okay. Sure, movie.
That's funny, because I was going to make some kind of snarky comment about the fact that it was 7 and just like, oh yes, the devil, known for offering 7 wishes according to mythology. But yeah, seven sins, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
I did for like a hot minute try to tie each of his wishes into one of the 7 sins, and I just couldn't do it. I think no, it just doesn't line up, and the movie's not interested in doing that. I think perhaps the 67 version of Bedazzled actually tried to do that and pulled it off, but this movie is not interested in doing that.
Yeah, right. It's I'm not sure how you would map Wrath onto any particular comedy beat. So
that is very true. All right. So sorry, I took us off a little tangent there, but I just forgot that I wanted to talk about that 67 version just briefly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I haven't seen it. Got nothing more to say.
Yeah. So I think that's going to do it for us on this movie. Both 2 no's, but really anxious to see what you folks at home think. Please let us know. And as always, if you're voting yes or if you're voting no, please let us know why. You can leave a comment on the poll itself. You can send us an email at what's their email account again, Matt? It's doofmedia@gmail.com. There it is. There it is. I remembered it. So just let us know.
All right.
Doof.
All right, Matt, we're going to wrap up this episode with me talking to you about the newest Marvel thing, because that's apparently what we do on the show now and forever.
Yeah, as with all podcasts.
That is true. If you have a podcast, you have to talk about Disney Plus. It's when you, interestingly enough, when you sign up on Apple Podcasts, they make you do that. Which I mean, side note, Matt, but Apple TV Plus is killing it. Like silently killing it. Like everyone's heard about Ted Lasso, but they've got like a bunch of shows on that thing that are just really, really good. And I guess because Apple has all the money, they don't really care about advertising all this stuff. I think they're just like, oh, we'll get this thing and it'll win us an award, and then people will hear about it that way. Yeah, because they bought this movie Coda at Sundance for like an insane amount of money. It was like one of the most popular movies out of Sundance, and they spent like an insane amount of money on it, and it dropped on Friday to like 0 advertisements or fanfare. They just put it, it's just on Apple TV Plus now. And it's like, but you spent so much money, but they don't care because it's probably going to win an Oscar, and then that will be their marketing.
Yeah, it's so funny because I never hear about any of this stuff except literally from you, a person who has their service. So, yeah, and like, you know, they had that Shyamalan TV show on there, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which I still haven't seen because I don't have that service. I mean,
here's a list of things that I think are worth watching on Apple TV Plus. They have Ted Lasso, which is incredible, really good. They have Servant, which is the Shyamalan movie. They have a Billie Eilish documentary, which is so fucking good. They have, I forget what that's called. Sorry. They have a show that just came out called Schmickadoon, which is a Lorne Michaels produced kind of send up of classic movie musicals, starring Cecily Strong and Keegan-Michael Key. And it's really, really funny. They have this new movie Coda that just came out, which is about the daughter of two deaf parents who wants to be a singer. She's not deaf. She wants to be a singer, and it's drama. It's really, really good. So like, and that's just off the top of my head, right? They have Mythic Quest, which is a hilarious show by the people that made It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia about an MMORPG video game company. And it's like, they're killing it, man. Apple TV Plus is killing it. This is not what we were supposed to be talking about in this section, but I got on a tangent, and I'm not saying go out and get Apple TV Plus. I'm just saying maybe pay attention to Apple TV Plus a little more, and maybe you'll start to see the value add there.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for me to be aware that these things exist, and just watch them kind of just whistle by me because I don't have it and don't plan to get it. But thanks for telling me about it anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, Disney Plus is a different service and has a lot of subscribers. I think they just had their quarterly numbers go in, and I think they're up to 126 million people are subscribed to Disney Plus, that's a lot. It's still not Netflix numbers, but it's getting there. It's getting there. They beat forecasts on their subscription numbers. So good for you, Disney. Glad you're doing great.
Out of curiosity, is that subscriptions or is that people? Because
that's subscriptions.
Because that implies like twice that many people. So
yes,
that's pretty huge. Yeah,
it is. So the newest Marvel show on Disney Plus is a show called What If, and I'm wondering, before I kind of talk about this, I'm wondering what you know about this thing at all.
I mean, all I know is that there has been this tradition in comic books where people would write issues where it was basically like, what if Superman was a woman, and you know, and then it would just be like, that was, you know, they just played with the premise, and it was a one-off, and it wasn't connected to anything else, and it was just kind of for fun. And this is Marvel basically saying like, yeah, okay, we're gonna do some of that with
Yeah.
the Marvel universe. Is that basically it?
That is basically it. Yeah, they had a whole comic series called What If in Marvel. You're right that DC did this too, but Marvel had a whole series called What If where they did this kind of one-off ideas. And it's interesting. At the time of this recording, only the first episode is out. And Marvel has been very kind of extremely tight-lipped about what the what if premises are going to be throughout the season, which is a little exciting because you don't know what it's going to be when you boot up. Like the only one everyone did know about was the one that is this first episode. That's the only one they kind of showed off. I mean, I guess there's a couple other hints at some of them, but they're being very kind of secretive about what they're doing with this. So this is an animated show. It is fully animated. And I have to, so I'm going to preface this with saying I enjoyed the first episode. So the first episode is basically what if instead of Steve Rogers getting the super soldier serum and becoming Captain America, it was Peggy Carter instead. What if she became Captain Carter instead of Captain America? Interestingly enough, not Captain Britain, even though she's Captain Britain, I think, is a comic book character, and she's like where the shield has the British flag on it instead of the American flag and all that. It's a fun idea, and I really enjoyed the animation style of this show. The action looks pretty good. Like I remember talking to you about how much I did not like the animation style of that show Invincible that was on Amazon a few months ago.
Yeah.
But I really liked that Invincible show anyway, like despite its bad animation that I didn't enjoy. This show, the animation looks great. The action looks great. It's really kinetic and fun to watch. But like, so the first episode is basically Captain America, the first Avenger, but if Peggy Carter was the captain, right? And so it's a 2-hour movie told over the span of 30 minutes. And so it just does kind of feel like a fast forwarded version of a story I've already seen with some characters changed around. Like I enjoyed, like it was fun, but I feel like they didn't play with the premise enough because it's just a short little bite of it, right? Like there's a relationship between Peggy Carter and Captain America and Steve Rogers rather. And like they hint at what the dynamics of that relationship would look like if the power dynamic was shifted drastically, but they didn't really explore it very much. I mean, he's just like, I still really like you and you still really like me. And then cool. That's it. And so like, it just, I don't know, man. Like I had fun watching it, but I just felt like if I turned on Captain America, the first Avenger, and put it at like 1.5 speed or even like 2 speed and just watch the movie. Like that's what it felt like. It's just like we're hitting plot beats from that movie, but we're twisting them a little. And that's fun. It's fun to watch, but it's not like it's not deep. It's not, I don't know. Maybe I'm expecting too much of this thing. Like that is basically just authorized fan fiction. Like, I don't know.
I see. That's the thing is just based on my kind of expectations of what the sort of the old school comics used to be is like more of like a Twilight Zone feel to things where it's like we're really just going to drill down into this one specific premise and we're not going to even try to make this like a superhero story. It's almost more just like a science fiction exploration of an idea. And it's like, if you wanted to make a superhero story, make a main comic book. Like, okay, good. Make a female Captain America character if you want to do that. Like it seems like kind of a weird, almost waste to do that in like a one-off setting.
Here's what I'm going to say. What I'm terrified about this whole thing is they're not actually going to be one-offs, that this whole thing is predicated on the fact that all these characters will be back. So can I spoil this episode for you? Like I've already but can I spoil the end of the episode for you?
I kind of think you're going to say something about multiverses, but yes, go ahead.
No, I'm not. Okay. So the kind of bookmarks on the show as a whole is you have Uatu the Watcher, who is kind of introducing you to these different worlds. And so, yes, it's multiverse related. Like he's saying, I'm going to guide you through this new multiverse. And so he goes to he's kind of talking to you as you go through the motions of Captain America, the first Avenger. And then he says, here's the moment. This is when it changes, when Peggy Carter makes a different choice than she did in the movie, and this is the nexus event, if you want to call it that turns off into this new reality that creates Captain Carter and does all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so the show ends where she gets sucked into a portal, which is her version of frozen in the ice, and ends up in basically about when Avengers is going to start. Like she shows up, goes through a portal, and there's God, what's his name?
Fury.
Samuel L. Jackson's character. Yeah, thank you. Fury's there, and basically like, okay, so she's there. So like, I don't know. There's just a feeling to me that we're going to write these things to be one-offs, but then Marvel's going to go, oh, but we're going to pluck all these one-offs. We're going to put them together, and that's going to be part of the secret wars that are the interdimensional wars that are happening. The only thing I don't know how they're going to do that is because this is a fully animated thing, and Peggy Carter is voiced by Haley Atwell. How are they gonna? I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna do it. Like if they bring the characters back to be in the MCU proper, but it does have that feel like that they're leaving it open to where now these characters can appear in anything else forever.
Okay, yeah.
And that makes me want to die a little bit. And that's interesting because it's not a critique of the show itself. It's a critique of the larger Marvel machine that I find myself becoming increasingly more exhausted by as we continue to do all these things.
Yeah, right. I guess I'll just say my thing I always say of just like, yeah, I mean, they could make it good. They could like pay it off.
They could. They absolutely could.
They continually surprise me, but also I do find like I on the other hand, I think what I can say is like I think all of the TV shows suffered because, as we talked about before, specifically because they had to shoehorn them into this overarching narrative where it's like, oh, you had a really cool idea. You had really cool setup and you had really good character stuff. Oh, and now we're having to attach this back into this cosmology, and I don't care about what's happening anymore. So,
and this seems like it could be the perfect answer to that problem, right? Where like this could literally just be a one-off 30-minute thing where we say, oh, what if Peggy Carter was Captain America? And then boom, and we did that and it was fun, and then we never come back to it again. It could be that. I just don't have a lot of faith that it will be that.
Right. I think it would be foolish for us to assume anything other than, yes, this is yet another piece of the new Marvel multiverse that they're building out. Yeah.
I've always liked the Peggy Carter character. It's fun to see her. Like I think I appreciate that they like committed to the bit, because like in my head as I was watching this thing, I was like, but when Steve Rogers got out of there, he was like, he started off as a little tiny guy and then he became like a big dude. Are they going to make her like a big lady? Are they going to really do that? And they did it. Like she's like super tall and like super muscular. I was like, I appreciate them committing to that instead of just doing like, she just looks like herself, but now she's super strong. I appreciated that.
Yeah. Sure, that at least seems to be somewhat taking seriously the actual idea of like propagating through the implications of the what if scenario. Yeah,
I will say it is also stuffed with like the Disney kind of feminism, which is similar to a complaint we made about Jungle Cruise, where like it's all like, you don't even belong in this room, Miss Carter, and she goes, yeah, I do, and then she does, and that's it. And then we did it. Feminism. Yeah.
We checked that box. Yeah.
It's just like, it's just, I don't know. Like, again, I appreciate what the show's saying. Like there are several moments where people like, first of all, they didn't want her. Like basically what happens is Steve Rogers gets injured and the power to power the inject super soldier serum device is like overloading, and so they need someone to get in there right now or it will be all lost. And Peggy's like, I'll do it. And they're like, no, you can't do that, you're a woman. And so there's this repeated beat throughout the series of people underestimating her because of who she is, especially in the 40s. But I don't know, like, because it's this 30-minute kind of fast forwarded version of the movie, it's just like people tell her no, and then she does it anyway. And the end. And it's just like, it's not any more deep than that.
Just paint by numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny to me how my daughter has grown up with the strongest character in the MCU being a woman, and like
Mhm.
she just is like genuinely confused whenever a movie implies that women can't do anything men can do, because all of the movies have basically shown the same ideas of just like women kicking ass all the time. So it's like
That's adorable and wonderful and makes me really happy.
Yeah,
That that's a thing that she can't even
Right.
get anymore.
But that makes it funny to me when a show like this they just like have to put in the beats where the men are like, you're a woman. It's like
Mhm.
it's like I actually don't know what that does if you're just going to make it kind of half-assed.
Mhm.
I don't think that does anything for anybody. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you said, checking boxes.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Lindsay Ellis made a whole a whole video about this for like the kind of Disney-esque girl boss feminism that is just like, yeah, girls.
Mhm.
Like I don't know. It's like it's the thing is it has such good intent behind it, and I totally don't want to wash that away, but it just there is part of it that just seems so corporately box checking, playing for points type stuff.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
I might watch this.
I mean-
I like the Marvels.
Yeah, I guess the thing I can say is like if I want if I want a movie or a TV show to really talk about like the deep, complicated struggles of equality, I shouldn't be going to a Marvel 30-minute cartoon. Like I should be going to like actual movies that are trying to really explore these issues. And it's unfair of me to look at a 30-minute cartoon and say, why aren't you doing feminism better?
Well, I think you roll your eyes when they use some of their precious 30-minute runtime to just do a bad job at a thing that maybe they either
that I can see that they like if they spent some more time on it and actually explored it. Because I mean, look, man, there was a whole show on ABC called Agent Carter that did this whole thing really well, where like she was the only female agent on the precursor to S.H.I.E.L.D., and like nobody believed in her and nobody wanted her to be in the room, and they wanted to relegate her to being the intern type role where she was getting coffee and food for everyone. And she was consistently a badass and awesome and smart and solving stuff on her own, because no one would like, they did all this more nuanced and better on Agent Carter, and nobody watched it. And that show got canceled after 2 seasons. So like, I don't know. Again, I think in conclusion, I think my expectations for this thing might have just been a little bit too high. I think it's a fun 30-minute exercise of just like, here, let's watch some cool animation of Peggy Carter being very strong and beating the shit out of people and like doing cool stuff with the shield, because it gets to do almost even crazier stuff with the shield than the movies can because it's animated.
Awesome. I'll definitely watch it then, just for the shield stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would after all the back and forth I've done, I think I would recommend the show. And I again, it's the only episode that's out so far. There's another episode coming out tomorrow, so by the time people are listening to this, the second episode will be out. And I've heard from the people, I think they gave critics the first 3 episodes of the show. I don't know how. I think there are 6. They gave critics the first 3. From what I've heard, the other 2 get a little more introspective into the ideas of the concept than the Captain Carter one did. So that excites me.
Good.
Yeah. So that is Marvel's What If. Let us know what you guys think of it. Did you enjoy it? Do you agree with anything we just talked about for the last 15 minutes? I wasn't expecting to spend that much time on that, but I did get distracted by Apple TV Plus.
Yes, that was important.
All right, but that is going to do it for us this week. If you have any opinions on Bedazzled, on Marvel's What If, or on Apple TV Plus, Ted Lasso, what do you guys think of Ted Lasso? You can reach out to us at doofmedia@gmail.com or over at our Twitter account at doofmedia. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram. That's also at doofmedia. My wife Elise is managing our Instagram account for us and spending a lot of time and energy on crafting funny stories and interactive things where she's asking people, what are you watching and what do you think about it and stuff like that. So if you're on Instagram, follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And if you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you that you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia, where you will be if you are voting in this week's poll about Bedazzled. You should already be over there. And while you're there, why don't you just look at those different tier levels and support us? You can even become a member of the Council, who are the individuals that are responsible for bringing these films to us. So if you want more films like Bedazzled on these episodes, you can become a member of that council and you can help make that decision.
That's right. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Each review really does help us to get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, folks, that is going to do it for us this week. Next week on the show, we're going to be talking about the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This is a patron-produced episode. A patron wanted us to take a look at this movie that I haven't seen since it came out.
Me either.
So that'll be next week. We'll see you guys then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.